There will come a day after a long summer when the stars bleed and the cold breath of darkness falls heavy on the world. In this dread hour a warrior shall draw from the fire a burning sword, and that sword shall be Lightbringer, the red sword of heroes, and he who clasps it shall be Azor Ahai come again, and the darkness shall flee before him. When the red star bleeds and the darkness gathers, Azor Ahai shall be born again amid smoke and salt, to wake dragons out of stone. The prophecy of Azor Ahai has been puzzling a Song of Ice and Fire fans for decades now. The foretold hero is supposed to be the central character in the fight against the others, mysterious ice zombies who enslave every dead man in their ever-growing army. Various characters seem to fit the prophecy, and as such, the fandom is in a constant war as to who will be the promised hero. Jon Snow, the son of literal ice and fire. Stannis Baratheon, who is hailed as Azor Ahai by Melisandre. Rhaegar Targaryen, who long believed himself to be the one to fulfill the prophecy, only to change his mind and assume that it's going to be his son, who, as it turns out, seems to be alive after all. All of these characters have one common denominator. They are men. No surprise, considering that the original Azor Ahai himself was a man who drew his famous sword by killing his beloved wife, so it is subconsciously assumed that this scenario will be repeated in the upcoming books. One of our male characters will realize his true destiny and will regretfully have to kill his female lover in order to forge the weapon necessary to save humanity. That is an universally held consensus. No one ever looked for a girl. Before we start, if you like my content, remember to give a like, subscribe and share so that more people can see it. Make sure to click the notification button so that you never miss a new video. The woman dies. She dies to provide a plot twist. She dies to develop the narrative. She dies for cathartic effect. She dies because no one could think of what else to do with her. Dies because there weren't any better story ideas around. Dies because her death was the very best idea that anyone could come up with. And so the woman dies. The woman dies so that the man can be sad about it. The woman dies so that the man can suffer. She dies to give him a destiny. Dies so he can fall to the dark side. Dies so he can lament her death. As he stands there, brimming with grief, brimming with life, the woman lies there in silence. The woman dies for him. We watch it happen. We read about it happening. We come to know it well. This poem by Aoko Matsuda is a criticism of the treatment of women in our culture we have internalized so strongly that we don't even question it anymore. It is part of a wider discussion about the way our culture perceives women. Nothing more than extensions of men, never their own people, props for male heroes, their love interests, their mothers, their underpowered sidekicks, passive, without their own thoughts or opinions. As such, it is not a surprise that the chosen one narrative is usually reserved for men. Women exist in order to be sacrificed to give strength to the male chosen one. Their death exists to give a man motivation and sadness, to make him go to the dark side out of grief. Azoyaf distinguishes itself by the fact that the main female characters are usually not destined for the fate of an average fictional woman, though that is not always the case for side characters anyway. Women of Azoyaf are unique in that rather than to exist as props for men, they drive the plot in various ways, are active, make decisions and mistakes, are morally grey, and for that reason they are often met with vicious hate and criticism by the fandom, unused to that sort of position female characters may have, especially in a patriarchal fantasy. It is therefore disappointing yet not at all surprising that most readers of Azoyaf would come to assume that their activeness is merely a red herring, and soon their unpatriarchal behavior shall be corrected by men. Daenerys' activeness could only culminate in her turning evil, and for that she will be punished with patriarchal violence. Since the role of the active heroes is reserved for men, it is assumed that a male character must be Azor Ahai, and few people can imagine that the prophesied hero could be a woman, even if the narrative itself points its finger at them. No one ever looked for a girl. It was a prince that was promised, not a princess. Rhaegar, I thought. The smoke was from the fire that devoured Summerhall on the day of his birth, the salt from the tears shed for those who died. He shared my belief when he was young, but later he became persuaded that it was his own son who fulfilled the prophecy, for a comet had been seen above King's Landing on the night Aegon was conceived, and Rhaegar was certain the bleeding star had to be a comet. What fools we were, who thought ourselves so wise. The error crept in from the translation. Dragons are neither male nor female. Barth saw the truth of that, but now one, and now the other, as changeable as flame. The language misled us all for 1,000 years. Daenerys is the one, born amidst salt and smoke. The dragons prove it. Azor Ahai prophecy is revealed in the second installment of the story, A Clash of Kings, and another crucial aspect of the prophecy, waking dragons out of stone, is revealed in A Storm of Swords, the third installment. As of today, there is only one character who fits the prophecy in full, since only one character woke the dragons out of stone. Daenerys Targaryen, who does this by the end of A Game of Thrones, before we even know of any prophecy. There will come a day after a long summer when the stars bleed and the cold breath of darkness falls heavy on the world. At the beginning of A Game of Thrones, we learn that the cold breath of darkness is about to fall heavy on the world. The others make their return after thousands of years of peace, and the long summer is heading towards an end. When Dany's husband dies, a red comet appears in the sky, which is a star bleeding. In this dread hour, a warrior shall draw from the fire a burning sword. And that sword shall be Lightbringer, the red sword of heroes, and he who clasps it shall be Azor Ahai come again, and the darkness shall flee before him. Daenerys does not draw any sword, but there is something else that she draws from the fire, her dragons. What could work better on ice zombies than a magical manifestation of fire? These dragons are born out of human sacrifice, much like Lightbringer was born out of human sacrifice. Do you know the tale of the forging of Lightbringer? I shall tell it to you. It was a time when darkness lay heavy on the world. To oppose it, the hero must have a hero's blade, oh, like none that had ever been. And so for 30 days and 30 nights, Azor Ahai labored sleepless in the temple, forging a blade in the sacred fires. Hit and hammer and fought, hit and hammer and fought, oh yes, until the sword was done. Yet when he plunged it into water to temper the steel, it burst asunder. Being a hero, it was not for him to shrug and go, in search of excellent grapes such as these, so again he began. The second time it took him 50 days and 50 nights, and this sword seemed even finer than the first. Azor Ahai captured a lion, to temper the blade by plunging it through the beast's red heart, but once more the steel shattered and split. Great was his woe, and great was his sorrow then, for he knew what he must do. 100 days and 100 nights he labored on the third blade, and as it glowed white hot in the sacred fires, he summoned his wife. Nissa, Nissa, he said to her, for that was her name. Bare your breast, and know that I love you best of all that is in this world. She did this thing, why I cannot say, and Azor Ahai thrust the smoking sword through her living heart. It is said that her cry of anguish and ecstasy left a crack across the face of the moon, but her blood and her soul and her strength and her courage all went into the steel. Such is the tale of the forging of Lightbringer, the red sword of heroes. Her vest had begun to smolder, so Dany dragged it off and let it fall to the ground. The painted leather burst into sudden flame as she skipped closer to the fire, her breast bare to the blaze, streams of milk flowing from her red and swollen nipples. Now, she thought, now, and for an instant she glimpsed Khal Drogo before her, mounted on his smoky stallion, a flaming lash in his hand. He smiled, and the whip snaked down at the pyre, hissing. She heard a crack, the sound of shattering stone. The platform of wood and brush and grass began to shift and collapse in upon itself. Bits of burning wood slid down at her, and Dany was showered with ash and cinders. And something else came crashing down, bouncing and rolling, to land at her feet. A chunk of curved rock, pale and veined with gold, broken and smoking. The roaring filled the world, yet dimly through the firefall Dany heard women shriek and children cry out in wonder. Only death can pay for life. And there came a second crack, loud and sharp as thunder, and the smoke stirred and wheeled around her, and the pyre shifted, the logs exploding as the fire touched their secret hearts. She heard the screams of frightened horses, and the voices of the Dothraki raised in shouts of fear and terror, and Ser Jorah calling her name and cursing. "No," she wanted to shout at him. "No, my good knight, do not fear for me. The fire is mine. I am Daenerys Stormborn, daughter of dragons, bride of dragons, mother of dragons. Don't you see? Don't you see?" With a belch of flame and smoke that reached 30 feet into the sky, the pyre collapsed and came down around her. Unafraid, Dany stepped forward into the firestorm, calling to her children. The third crack was as loud and sharp as the breaking of the world. When the red star bleeds and the darkness gathers, Azor Ahai shall be born again amid smoke and salt to wake dragons out of stone. Dany does wake dragons out of stone, and Dany was indeed born amid smoke and salt. The first time Dany was born was on Dragonstone, during a severe storm that destroyed almost all of the Targaryen fleet. The salt water provided the salt. And Dany was born again when she survived the pyre and woke the dragons out of stone, with the fire providing smoke. All other characters do seem to fit certain aspects of the prophecy, but only Daenerys forges anything resembling Lightbringer out of Drogo, her Nissa Nissa, her dragons. Only Daenerys is born amidst salt and smoke, on Dragonstone and on the Dothraki Sea, and only Dany wakes the dragons out of stone. The signs of Dany's true destiny go even deeper. "Aegon," he said to a woman nursing a newborn babe in a great wooden bed. "What better name for a king?" "Will you make a song for him?" the woman asked. "He has a song," the man replied. "He is the prince that was promised, and his is the song of ice and fire." He looked up when he said it, and his eyes met Dany's, and it seemed as if he saw her standing there beyond the door. "There must be one more," he said, though whether he was speaking to her or the woman in the bed, she could not say. "The dragon has 3 heads. Here Rhaegar seems to see Daenerys in the House of the Undying, perhaps having a vision of her, and tells her the prophecy that has been handed from king to heir for generations, one that was revealed in House of the Dragon. From my blood comes the prince that was promised, and his will be the song of ice and fire." In the show, when the prophecy is revealed, we hear a variation of Breaker of Chains, Daenerys' theme.
This secret, it's been passed from king to heir since Aegon's time. Now you must promise to carry it and protect it.
Finally the crone opened her eye and lifted her arms. "I have seen his face, and heard the thunder of his hoofs," she proclaimed in a thin, wavery voice. "The thunder of his hoofs," the others chorused. "As swift as the wind he rides, and behind him his halasar covers the earth. Men without number, with arcs shining in their hands like blades of razor grass. Fierce as a storm this prince will be. His enemies will tremble before him, and their wives will weep tears of blood and rend their flesh in grief. The bells in his hair will sing his coming, and the milkmen in the stone tents will fear his name." The old woman trembled and looked at Dany, almost as if she were afraid. "The prince is riding, and he shall be the stallion who mounts the world." Beneath the mother of mountains, a line of naked crones crept from a great lake and knelt shivering before her, their grey heads bowed. The crones made the same mistake. They assumed that the stallion who mounts the world will be her son, while in reality it's Dany. There is a plausible theory that the stallion who mounts the world is simply a Dothraki version of the Azor Ahai prophecy, and in that case it would apply to Dany herself. That night she dreamt that she was Rhaegar, riding to the Trident. But she was mounted on a dragon, not a horse. When she saw the usurper's rebel host across the river, they were armored all in ice, but she bathed them in dragon fire, and they melted away like dew, and turned the Trident into a torrent. Many people claim that Dany being Azor Ahai is too predictable. She must be a red herring, of course, because too many things point out in her direction, and someone who barely has any signs of being the prophesied hero has to take her place. The accusation of it being too obvious or not subversive enough are baffling to me. Daenerys being a prophesied hero would be subversive on the sole basis of her being a woman, since women are always Nissas, never Azor Ahais. The woman dies. She dies to provide a plot twist. She dies to develop the narrative. She dies to give a man a destiny. She wakes the dragons out of stone only to be butchered and for those dragons to go to a man who is clearly more deserving of them. I fail to see how an exiled former sex slave who grew homeless and in poverty, gaining power in her own right and using her power to end slavery, being the hero, isn't subversive. It is. It's incredible precisely because we are already told that for thousands of years no one ever looked for a girl. Not only the characters, but the fandom never looked for a girl. It has to be a man who kills his lover to be a hero. It has to be a woman that dies. It has to be Azor Ahai and Nissa. A man is a hero, while a woman is forgotten in all of that, just like all other women who were forgotten in the stories of great men. Fan favorite candidate for Azor Ahai is of course Jon Snow, even though he does not wake the dragons out of stone and is unlikely to do so. The reasoning for Jon being Azor Ahai is that as the son of Lyanna and Rhaegar, he has the right set of genetics, half Valyrian and half First Man, or that he is the son of metaphorical ice and fire, Stark and Targaryen. You would be surprised to know that the Azor Ahai prophecy does not involve anything about genetics or being the child of Starks and Targaryens. You would think that it is a component of the prophecy and that's why Rhaegar sought Lyanna, but nothing about the prophecy says anything about Azor Ahai coming from ice and fire, especially since at the time Rhaegar was convinced that Aegon is the prince. And if one cries about subverting tropes or not obvious choices, then I have a question. What is subversive about a man growing up with a belief that he's a bastard, but in fact he is a son of a prince and a highborn lady, and he is a prophesied hero simply because he has the right parentage and right set of genetics? What's subversive about him falling in love with a woman only for said woman to be a crazy bitch who has to be put down so that he can forge a fiery sword out of her body? I already talked about how disturbing I find the most common prediction for Daenerys to be her going insane and being put down like a pig so that a man can forge Lightbringer and be a hero while she's forgotten in all of this. In a scenario of this sort, Daenerys seemingly only exists to provide resources for the fight against the others, but she herself cannot be rewarded for it, nor even be considered a hero, so she conveniently dies so that a man can be a hero. Daenerys dies to provide a plot twist. It's Jon who is a hero while she is an evil tyrant. Daenerys dies so that Jon, Azor Ahai, can be sad and suffer about his Nissa Daenerys. She dies to give him a destiny. We want it to happen. We read theories about it happening. We come to know it well. Thanks for watching. Like I said, if you like this video, please give a like, subscribe and share so that more people can see it too. Make sure to click the notification button so that you never miss a new video.